Hey Charlotte, how's it going?
Hey, Kenny, how are you, sir?
Much better for speaking to you. I wanted to ask you first of all, the character of Charlotte that you've developed on TV over the last couple of years, you're so great at being a villain. I've noticed this, like your facial expressions, and the thing that I think strikes me, and it sounds like I'm just blowing smoke, but there is a question coming. You handle things very well, whether it be facial expressions or the crowd getting a bit rowdy. You just seem to have this way that you react well, you're on the spot, and it's probably one of the most well-defined characters in WWE right now, male, female, whatever. I just wonder, when you were developing your character, how important was it for the character to feel authentic and for you to carry yourself with that sort of confidence?
Okay, I'll try not to drag this question on too long. So, being in the public eye your whole life, you know, I grew up in a small town, I grew up in Charlotte. It was obviously not the city back then as it is today. So being in that small town and everyone always knowing, you know, who my family was, kind of helped me put up a shield. Because, you know, it's hard as a kid. Like, you know, when you're sitting with your parents, you don't understand why everyone's staring or, you know, bothering your dad, or anytime, you know, my family had something good or bad happen, it was always in the media. So I had to develop, you know, thick skin then. And when I got into wrestling, I took it so many things to heart because I had come from, you know, I played college volleyball, and sports are completely different than, you know, WWE. At the end of the day, it's still, you know, the wins or loses, you know, are, I hate to say it, but there's predetermined, correct? So when so many people are like, oh, she's only here, you know, because of her dad, I was like, excuse me, like, I've been in the weight room all day, or I've been watching film all night, or, you know, I work as hard as just every other girl. Why can't, you know, these people realize that I'm not, you know, I'm struggling here to, you know, show you that I want it, and I'm just not Ric Flair's daughter. And then there came a point where I had to say, you know what, you have to be proud of where you come from. And it's okay if, you know, you take elements from your father who you're proud of, and whether people like it or don't like it, they're just going to have to deal with it. So when I debuted on the main roster as a good guy, I was like, why do the fans not like me? Like, I really don't understand. I'm smiling, I'm doing this, like, I'm trying my hardest, and then it just, like, clicked. It's like, I am telling people that I am genetically superior, and that's not likable. So I'm like, oh, just like a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh my gosh, use that. So then I'm thinking, you know what, everyone thinks, you know, I'm telling people that I'm a nice person, but people already think that I'm X, Y, and Z, right? But then again, I'm 6 feet tall, I'm muscular, et cetera, and I'm like, no, use the things that you shy away from to make yourself hateable. So instead of saying, hey, like me, no, like, use your strong presence, use that you're athletic, use, you know, that you're whatever, and just go with it. So finally, when I decided to commit and just say, be the best bad guy that you can be, it all fell into, like, the puzzle pieces all came together, because I think for so long I was so, you know, confused in my own mind, like, you know, why aren't they liking me, or why, you know, I try really hard, instead just be the best bad guy that they think you already are. And that's, you know, it just started to click.
And I guess the best compliment of that is, usually NXT takeovers and stuff, the fans tend to like, you know, people coming out of character a little bit. But when Bayley hugged you after her match at TakeOver, the fans still booed because you were there and you were hugging Bayley.
Yeah,
I guess that's a testament to it. I also wanted to ask you, you know, a lot of people on this call so far have asked about the Women's Revolution and the stuff that you guys have done and maybe headlining WrestleMania. But I wanted to ask you about, how important was it to you at all about not being known as a diva anymore and being called a superstar? Because that name, for some people, it was a problem for them, and they're very happy that it's now superstar instead of diva. What was that like for you specifically?
Well, so I think people always want to pick something to be angry at. For me, being called a diva and knowing what I represent as a strong, athletic female, I thought it was awesome that I could be both. You know, that I could walk out in the ring and be like, yeah, she's a diva. I thought it was great, but I also think it was great to be considered, you know, a superstar. You go to our website and you look at any of the male guys, and then you look at the males and you look at females. We're all superstars, which that in itself yells, screams, we're equals. So they're not superstars, we're not divas. But I mean, I think it's, you know, I thought it was great before, and I think it's great now.
And just finally, obviously, in November, very exciting news. For the first time ever, there's going to be Raw and SmackDown, the TV shows in Glasgow, in Scotland. And I wanted to ask you about Nikki Cross, who's obviously now in NXT, the first ever Scottish female performer. Have you had a chance to check out much of her stuff, and are you looking forward to eventually getting to work with her?
I'm definitely looking forward to working all the girls at NXT, hopefully one day. She's fairly new, so I haven't obviously seen that much of her, but if NXT, you know, has hand-selected her, then I'm sure she's amazing.
Great. Well, thank you very much for taking the time.
For sure. Thank you.
Next, we'll take a follow-up from Kenny McIntosh with the Daily Record.
Hi, Charlotte. I didn't know I'd be back so soon, but hi again. One thing I wanted to ask you, we spoke earlier about, you know, you grew up with a famous dad and all that sort of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about your dad being your manager on the main roster, how you felt about that initially, and looking back on that now and that whole run, how you remember it?
I think for me, it's what drove me to get better night after night. It's because, you know, yes, he's my dad, but in this world that I work in, he's Ric Flair, the two-time, you know, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest of all time. And to know that I had to walk out there with him every single night, and I'm, you know, trying to be the focus and trying to, you know, mark my place on the roster and get better, it was challenging because, you know, I wanted the spotlight and he was beside me, and that's, you know, tough to swallow. So I had to every single night take a, you know, deep breath and say, hey, you know, how can I make everyone focus on me and not my dad, and not have him overshadow me? And it just pushed me that much harder because I was not going to let that happen.
Absolutely. And then just the last question is, one of the big characters on Monday Night Raw is obviously Stephanie McMahon, and she's involved in storylines and things like that. Is she somebody that you would like to get in the ring with at some point? Because she tends to have matches once in a blue moon, but if she does do one more, is that something that you'd like to do? Because you've obviously interacted with her on screen already, but not in a physical way.
She's my dream match. She would
there
be
you
my
go.
dream match.
Okay.
100%.
Fantastic. Well, we will look forward to it if it ever happens.
Yeah, me too.